Hey y'all, welcome back to Modified. If you're new to the channel, this is Project SLIK DOGG. If you want to get caught up on Project SLIK DOGG, go to my channel, hit the playlist, Project SLIK DOGG, get all caught up. Today, I'm going to weld in the rear end, get the pinion angle set straight, and tie up the loose ends I got with the brakes. I got a proportionate valve and some brake lines, and we'll be able to put this thing on the ground and bleed them and test them out. Y'all check it out. I got all my bolts from the junkyard, hit a good score, and found a truck with no front end on it, but had all the bolts there for the brakes. Start with the dust shield. It goes away from the rotor. That's gonna go on like that. It's also kind of cupped to fit. This is how I do a 6-lug conversion on a 5-lug truck. So these spindles, if I haven't said this already, are off of my 2006 Silverado. I upgraded to lift spindles, and these are the stock spindles, which are like a 2-inch drop on top of the spindle that used to be on this truck. The other spindle used to be right above the ball joints. It's about 2 inches there, 2.5 or so. With the 3-inch springs, this will give me about a 5-inch drop on the front to match the 5-inch drop on the rear. There's my bolts. And they always kind of do this. You gotta kind of loosely start them. And once they find their home, they're a coarse thread. They just go right in the rest of the way. Could have went to the hardware store and saved some time, but I feel better with factory bolts holding hardware on, because you get the flange at the back of the head, you get the right property class, the right hardness. You don't have to guess at the threads either. They just go right in. So like all of these, it's a 15mm. We'll get this snug down. So this just bolts together just like regular 2006 stuff. Next we'll do the brake disc. And this looks backwards, but it's labeled driver's side. You would think you would want to spin to the rear, but it actually spins forward. And we can put on the brake bracket. With the factory brake bolts, it's still got the thread locker on them. You can really feel it bite in. Look at that, huh? It's already getting there. That's on tighten. Don't forget your new brake springs. Those 6 brakes on this 83. You got a curved one. And you got a square bottom, which that ain't gonna work. That's your backside. Cross-drilled slided rotors, sealed 6-lug hub bearings to match the 6-lug rear axle, and a caliper. Double pistons on an 83. That ain't factory, but it is. So usually your big brake kits are like $2-3 grand, but you can change all the stuff on your 06 for $200 or $300. You know what I mean? It's an upgrade for this truck. So that's what we're doing. We're upgrading to 83. It's got a 99 to 06 5.3 with a 99 to 06 4L60 with 99 to 06 13-inch brakes with a 90s 14-bolt 6-lug heavy half rear end. So I'm going to run the new brake line here, but let's check the wheels for fitment. I got a 17 by 8.5 to clear this brake. A 16 or a 15 wouldn't fit because the truck naturally came with 17-inch wheels. So let's put the 17 by 8.5 on with a positive 10 offset and see how it fits. 17 by 8.5. Get this cool little knife. There it is, just like in the video. So if I'm gonna take the covers off, might as well put the tires on, right? Look at that Louisiana moisture in there. It's a good thing they're aluminum. But I got some load range D valve stems. The tire goes like Frank's Red Hot, man. You put that stuff on anything. Go ahead and pop that in there. Like butter, baby. So this is a 17 by 8.5. And we're gonna put a 265/65. But I kind of got a rule. If it's got white letters, you put it on stock wheels because the stock wheels are usually kind of plain. If it's custom wheels, you don't want to take away from the look of the wheel. We're going to mount black wall out because there's enough design up here to complement the truck and the wheel without going too much. I like to put some on the wheel because these new wheels, sometimes the tires don't like to bead. Like most projects, I didn't plan on this lasting as long as it has, but stuff happens and you gotta, when you're engineering it as you go. See, the yellow dot is right at the top. So if we put it right at the bottom, put a valve stem, that'll be right. 8.5-inch wide rim with a 10.5-inch wide tire. Let go of the wheel. There we go. I didn't take the valve stem out. It usually helps. That bottom bead ought to set about 10 to 15 pounds. That top one ought to set about 15 to 20. Bottom, 10. Look at that. Actually, 9. The top, there we go, 20. See, these tires hold 44 pounds. I'm going to put them about 38 because you want to run the front's a little harder so it stiffens up the steering. Man, these 969 wheels are perfect on this 83. Everything's an upgrade, but it's not a drastic upgrade. The brakes in the front went from 11s to 13s, and in the back, the brakes went from 10s to 11s. The rear axle's out of about a mid-90s 4x4, so it's a little narrower. I could get away with a little bit more depth on the wheel to make it fit. 38 on the dot. Now, you just can't leave this black valve stem with this gold. So these are some load range C or standard valve stems. Kind of upgraded my buddy here, and I threw some load range D ones on. These are good for 65 PSI. But we got the little chrome covers. They just sit right in the wheel perfect. And a chrome valve stem cap to make the air inlet kind of disappear. The test fit this on the front of the truck and see how perfect it is, because I think it's going to be spot on. Plus 10, 8.5s on an 06 front suspension that's been modified to fit tubular upper and lowers for an 83. Modified. It's about as wide as you want to go before you start having problems. Man, that back and that front wheel tire fitment. And look at those brakes up inside of there, huh? Got a full stainless steel exhaust I put on it. X-pipe all the way to stainless shorty headers in the front. I got the rear end ratchet strapped. They're up at ride height right now, so I can set the pinion angle. It's sitting on some 17x9, some wide 285/65s. We went with the all-terrain just because it's not a low rider. The front, we matched it with some 17x8.5s with a 265/65. A little bit narrower, a little bit shorter. And the offset is different. It gives me a 3-inch lip in the front and this massive, awesome 4-inch lip in the back. It's got cross-drilled slotted rotors, brand new brakes off of a 2006. That's my 6-lug conversion. We went with tubular lower control arms, 3-inch drop springs, tubular upper control arms, and that is a 2006 front spindle modified to fit an 83 set of tubular upper and lowers. Everything fits. I mean, perfect. Took a little bit of massaging up in here, but this truck is coming along exactly how we want it to. Got a 5.3 LM7 BTR stage 4 truck cam, true dual 2.5s with an X-pipe. These are some MagnaFlow style stainless welded. The tube just goes straight through of the axle and at the back. Like I said before, the ratchet straps are holding up the rear axle. The U-bolts are loose. Everything's been measured and centered on the straightest thing I could find, which is a drill bit. Find my angle, set my angle, tack the perches on, pull it out, weld it, put it all back in, then do the brakes, because I'm going to do the brake line, well, the brake hose to the rear axle and set up the emergency brakes so they function properly. Front, I got new brake hoses, and we went from manual brakes to power brakes. I already installed the power boost. We're going to bench bleed the master cylinder, hook up the new proportion valve, put it all together, bleed it up, see how this thing stops, and if we have enough time, I'm going to go ahead and make a rip in it. So I went to the orange store. I bought me an orange gauge. Turn this on, zero it out here. We'll put it flat on the face of the pinion. That's at 0. So I'm going to go check at the same angle on the same piece where the back of the transmission sits. So checking the transmission in the same orientation, going flat against the tail shaft, I got 8.1 degrees difference. So in case I did that backwards, if I set this to 0, I'll have 8 back there. Let's zero this out and double check myself. 0 degrees. Now back here, you can look through the left, I have 8 point. That tells me I need to be within 3 degrees down of that. So I can take and jack up on this, and I can watch my degrees change as I go up with it. Everything's loose as it rotates. We're at 6. Straight up and down off the back of the transmission, zeroed out, and then 3.0. So I'm at my 3 degrees difference, and when you goose it, it'll make it level out, and then cruising around, it'll let your universal joints rotate. So now that this is set, I'm gonna go ahead and lock down all of the U-bolts so nothing moves, and then weld it, and then I'll be right. Move back onto the front end. So if I got to press the button to record while I tightened everything back up, but all the U-bolts are tight. Double check my angles. My drive shaft coming out of the tail shaft. The tail shaft of the transmission is 0, and the pinion angle on the rear differential is at 3 degrees. We're straight up and down and 3 degrees up, and the drive shaft is at a 1 degree incline in between the 3 degrees and the, but it looks good under here. Check it out. There is just a little bit of bend in it. So cruising, those ball joints will be rolling around. It goes up. It's got an upward travel. These ball joints have a slight bend down. So there's my 3 degrees. That's where it sits. The U-bolts have been tightened, so nothing's going to pivot on me. Everything fits nice and tight in here. So I'm going to tack weld those perches on. Weld them the rest of the way is really not a good way to show you all what I'm doing besides like my back and sparks flying. So we'll go ahead and weld the perches in and get those good to go. We'll move on to the front. Here's where I'm at so far. I got the 2006 brake hoses, and they do go in the stock 83 spot, both sides. I'm going to reuse the stock brake lines already bent to go into place. Just I had to do one thing. I had to put a 3/16 to 7/16 inverted flare nut. Luckily, I have the double flaring tool to do that with, so I just cut off the old flare, slid off the old nut, put the new nut on with a larger thread diameter, re-inverted flare or double flared it, and now we're changing this proportion valve here. So I got all the lines loose. It would have been boring to try to watch me take all the lines off of this and change it out and replace it. I got the 2 bolts left to take it off, and I'm going to swap it with the new one and explain what lines go where and how it works. They're all kind of the same. So let's get to it. So there's just 2 1/2-inch bolts left in the frame right here. Got a little dirt on it since 1983. The other reason I have to change this is because I'm going from manual brakes to power brakes. The proportion valve is different. It should make the brakes stop evenly because this truck does not have ABS. There it is. In a quick comparison, these are your front 2 lines. This is your brake indicator. This is your back line. Your front out, or you can plug this off and put a T here. It's up to you. Front in, rear out. That's how the diagram showed it. Goes for the same on the new one. Since they're both for an 83, upgraded power brakes and clean. It's also like a nice block instead of stamped or forged or whatever this is with the seam in it. So put this one on. In the kit, they give you this bracket, which would bolt just under the new power boost. And they give you these 2 little short lines that would go down into the new proportion valve. But this truck is mounted here. I'm not rerunning all these lines. They're still good. They give you new bolts. They don't give you new nuts because this bracket is threaded. We're just going to reuse the old bolts. See, look at that. Lines up just right. I'm going to leave this block a little loose so I got a little wiggle room as far as making everything line up, like this rear one. Put that one in first. It's all inverted flare stuff. And it all should be the correct threads because this kit was purchased for a 73 to 87 for a body Chevy. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything hand tight and then cinch it all up. Then we can bleed it, check for leaks. So I got the front one for the driver's side, goes in the top part, and this line here for the passenger side goes in the bottom part. I got both my top lines. It's really hard to show you all this. That's why I just kind of said, hey, look, we're changing the proportion valve just to show you all that we're changing the proportion valve. I'm going to finish hooking the rest of this up, then we'll move on to the brake calipers. So where this rubber hose goes into the frame, there you go. Flip on that. This goes into the frame in the proper spot here, and there's a bolt that holds this in the factory location because that's a factory spindle. I'm going to pull these tires off so I can get to everything. Buddy Charles was like, man, them brakes are huge. I'm like, yeah, it's because that's the stock diameter wheel, just not stock diameter for this truck, stock diameter brakes. So it's stock on an 06, which has a curb weight around 4,800 pounds, and this has got a curb weight around 3,200 pounds. So this is a huge brake upgrade for this truck. The back was a 1.5 inch wide by 10-inch drum, and now it's a 2.5 inch wide by 11-inch drum. So the back's an upgrade too. So this thing's got a lot of go. It is 400 horsepower, 5.3. That's got a lot of whoa. So everything's running buttoned up, and I'm down to the last bolt on the front. And once you get it tight, where it's nice and snug, you don't feel like you want to put any more on it, get your little tink. The one good tap kind of crushes the copper washer a little bit. You can get just a little bit more on it. So up here, there we go. Power brake master cylinder and a vise. Thought I pressed record, but now it's recording just to show you what I did. Comes with this little plunger. It goes in the back of the master cylinder, and it's got these two hoses with these plastic fittings that kind of go into the ports to feed the brakes to the truck. You run these hoses into the top on this little clip right here. Make sure that the hoses stay submerged in brake fluid. And what you're going to want to do is slowly merge and just slowly push, and you'll see air bubbles run through. To press it all the way in, nice and slow. Let it come all the way out until there's no bubbles left. Once it's bled, you leave the rubber hoses hooked up, top the cap back on it, cinch those little plastic hoses down until it's put in the truck. I have gone and removed the drums, ran the factory emergency brake cables into the drums. The original shock location was in this because I had the axle underneath RCSB and I oriented the shocks to the rear. I went ahead and did it on this one. Pretty simple, I just drilled a hole and stuck the shock bolt that was here over here, and I gave it a little bit of space and so there's some room behind it. Same on this side. This is the original way it went. We just matched the angle of this one with the angle of that one. Instead of twisting the shock over, I knew I had plenty of room over here, but to keep them even, this is a grade 8 bolt, 5/8 diameter, piece of galvanized pipe, grade 8 washer, grade 8 washer, grade 8 washer. What they basically let me do was put a really hard piece of metal for this to hang off of, and since it's all cinched together, this doesn't move, and the whole thing is just as solid as if it was one welded piece. You know, there's no cantilever action here. So the shock will shock, the other side set up the same way, both shocks to the rear. So as the pivot point in the front lets this whole thing pivot up and down, the shock squeezes in evenly on both sides and lets that happen. Front brakes are all done. The shock bracket I made for the front kind of followed the contour. Did all this by hand with the grinder. I didn't think it was that interesting to make. I just cut 4 plates, a plate here and a plate here. I just used a longer, a 1/2-inch bolt. This is bolted in how it's supposed to. This is where the original shock would go, but it would kind of throw. The shock is longer than stock, so it's got a better travel rate. It was throwing the bushings in the shocks. It was cocking them really hard, but now they're nice and straight. So this adjusted for that angle. I got to make 2 cool little shock brackets. It wedges against here hard, and I put this plate on the front to not only keep this even, but it wedges against here hard. So this doesn't move at all. It's solid, like as if it would have been welded. But the shocks are in there, almost in their stock location. They belong here, but like I said, that extra bend would have totally been stressing the bushings, and now the bushings are straight. Got the rubber lines on. Those big brakes, I love them. This damn thing. It's a universal fit, I guess, for it said 67 to 87 Chevy truck. It came with these brackets, and I guess on the original stamp, you would just drill a hole and bolt this wherever the end link would line up at, and it was good. We got custom tubulars, and it doesn't line up with the hole that's right there. So I'm gonna have to figure something out with that. So what I'm thinking is I just have to cut this bracket off. Since the truck is dropped anyway, we don't need it to be down, we need it to be up. I'll drill 2 new holes and just mount this to the frame. So the sway bar's out of the way, and it's the last link to making this truck handle like a slot car, because it already looks like one. We'll get rid of these drop-down brackets. Try that first. The old air chisel. I hate this thing, but whatever gets it off, right? One. Yeah, buddy. So I got it figured out now. Using it upside down how I had it, with the shorter links that it came with, and the little standoff bracket, that's going to work perfect. Man, these things are awesome, huh? So the brackets come with a bolt, a lock nut, and a washer. I like to add washers because I grew up working in a hardware store. Thanks, Pat. Got to disperse the torque. So when I go to hang these, I'll just put them on loose for now. That's how I figured it pretty much is going to go. So So that's hanging. Now I figured out the orientation of the end links. I gotta use the short ones that actually came in the kit. And this little gold piece goes in the end of the lower control arm. So we got this bolted up. Drilled a hole all the way through. Got the nut and the bolt on the backside. Got a shoulder bolt so it takes up less room. All right, let's go up with it now. Yeah.
It's hitting perfectly over there too.
Yeah. Now it'll drop in place. Man, this is the last thing right here before we gotta bleed the brakes. So I got the bolt going all the way through. That's not gonna let this rock at all, even though it's on a round tube, because I got a washer here on the front side keeping it straight. That sway bar is mounted. I went through the frame, new bushings, measured everything to the closest 1/16 of an inch. Now we can finally get it off the lift and put the master cylinder on, and bleed the system out, put the wheels on, and back it out in the driveway and show what it looks like done. We have the power booster and the master cylinder installed. I'm gonna go ahead and reuse the stock lines because I reused everything else that was stock. It was all in good shape. I didn't see the point of running new stuff. Put me a little catch rag down because it's gonna drip. But this has been bench bled. I left the cap on to kind of hold the fluid from coming out. Inverted flare fittings, they gotta go on perfect or they don't go on. So this isn't threading in here. It's like it's too big. So this came with those two metal lines and shiny ones. We might have to cut the nuts off of this, change the nuts out, and reflare the ends. So it's like I was saying, all the stuff's got to go together perfect. It turns out that this is a 9/16 for the back. A 1/2 inch was on here. And this is a 1/2 inch for the front. A 9/16 was on there. That's why I couldn't get it to go in the first place. But this is a 1/4 inch line. This is a 3/16 line. So I had to go get an adapter nut 9/16 to 3/16, 1/2 inch to 3/8. So now it'll screw together properly. You got to line it right up. That's what I'm talking about. That's it. Just gotta cinch them down now. And I kept the coils from the factory lines in there because they're like vibration dampeners. When this truck's vibrating down the road, that coil spring acts like a spring and doesn't let your line split. I'm trying to get these brakes bled tonight so we can have this thing on the ground. And the drips have stopped. Y'all check it out, the wheels on. You know what that means? Hood's closed. About to get this thing off the lift. That is an empty bed. All the parts have been put on. Let's fire it up. Project SLIK DOGG suspension rebuild is done, and that's a win. That thing's sitting there like a bulldog. That's a muscle truck if I ever saw one. What you think, bro?
Hey, so everything I ever wanted.
Toy truck sitting there, ain't it? Told you we're gonna make a slot car out of it. So what you think about the ride height, dude?
It's everything we talked about. It's not low rider at all.
No, you got like 14 inches down there, and I think we measured 13 in the front, so it's got a slight rake.
It's not stock that's high. It just looks like a dirt track truck. Like it could go fast on a dirt track.
Like a sand drag, you know? It's kind of how the slot car sat, though. Just wide and muscly, and I mean, dude, the tire fitment. You can't get any closer to the outside of that fender, and nothing rubs.
Look at the way the back looks in the fenders. It just looks like it was all meant to be that way.
Yeah.
It's so nice. I think if I sent pictures to LMC, they'll put it in their catalog.
You think they put it on
I think they will.
on the cover?
I think they will.
And you with the wood bed and the color you picked with the glitter in it, like, dude, this whole truck has just come to life.
That's a gun stock stain and probably 15 coats of varnish.
Awesome. It shines like the paint.
I would do 3 coats, sand it, 3 coats, sand it until it started looking like glass. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for me.
Look, if you build it to be a show car, you'll never drive it. It's got to be built to drive, so it's going to have a blemish here and there. I mean, even brand new cars aren't perfect. It's legit now. This truck has been modified. Now we got to get some roller videos in. Yo, that's Project SLIK DOGG. That's my buddy Vic. We've been trying to do this for about 10 years now, and we finally made it happen. Appreciate y'all watching. Catch me on Fridays. This is Project SLIK DOGG. If you're new, go to my channel, look up the playlist, Project SLIK DOGG, and get caught up on how it got to here. Appreciate y'all watching once again. Catch you next week. Later.
Modified.